In this section we will demonstrate how to set the scale and then explain how to obtain the correct measurements at the site. First off, if you have been to the site at this point, you would set the scale. There is no rule that says you have to set the scale before you diagram. You can diagram the house first, and then you can set the scale after you have finished the diagram. It depends when you visit the site. Some people like to pre-diagram or diagram the night before. If that's the case, you would set the scale after you visited the site. At this point, let's discuss how to take the correct site measurements. You need a minimum of 2 measurements obtained at the site to set the scale. To ensure the greatest accuracy, you want to take the longest horizontal measurements that you can. You cannot take any slope measurements to set the scale. In this particular image, this length here and this length here would be the 2 best measurements. This length and this length would not be good. This length would not be good. This length would not be good. This length could possibly be used, and this length here could possibly be used if you had a definite edge there, but this is a little iffy here. After you take these 2 measurements, and I would suggest you use 100-foot tape and put the tape on the fascia board or the gutter. You cannot piecemeal a tape. You cannot eyeball it because you will not get accurate measurements. After you have taken 2 good horizontal measurements, you need to take the pitch of the house. To make sure that you take the correct pitch, always use a gable if it's available. If a gable is not available, you have to be careful on hips because the shingles do curl, and it's best to take a pitch over 3 or 4 runs using a 2x4 to lay your pitch gauge on so that you can take the curls out of the shingles. If you are driving a long ways to the site, I would suggest maybe taking a 3rd measurements. Sometimes if you take 2 measurements and they don't agree, then you may need a 3rd to decide which one is correct. Once we have visited the site, we have our 2 scale measurements, so we're now ready to set the scale. This ruler is what you use to set the scale. The hotkey is S. You can click on the ruler here. You can right click and draw the scale line here. We're going to put this mark right on the outside edge of the corner. Left click, drag it, left click again. We found this measurement to be 40 feet 4 inches. Click OK, and we come up with 0.42. Notice that 2 scale lines are required to establish scale. You can use more than 2, but 2 is the minimum. This length right here is 37 feet even. We're going to click and put our point right on the corner. Get off, drag it, get it right on the outside corner. Click. 37 feet. OK. And notice that our 2 measurements do agree, so we have taken good measurements. If this were 0.41, it would be acceptable. If this were 0.40, it would be acceptable because it's within 0.02. You could not use 0.46 or 0.48 or 0.52. If you had 2, one was 0.42, one was 0.52, that's why the 3rd measurement would come in handy to verify which one was correct. Also, you would get to know some neighborhoods, but don't necessarily think that every house could be exactly the same. One part of a neighborhood could be 0.43. Always take the measurement as you get it, and just make sure that your two measurements are within 0.02 of each other. What is this measurement? You're telling the computer how many feet per pixel is in the image. And from that, the computer will determine, along with pitch, the square footage of the house. In the next section, we will diagram this roof.